particular site we have worked with and we've coveted for longer time than we actually have existed. We looked at this particular site. We had seen the fruit before we started. It's a beautifully austere, lean, extraordinarily old geology, 650 million years of age, and it garners intensity quite early in the season, and so you're able to pick relatively early, preserve natural acidity, and yet also build weight and power and tannin and structure, and it has a really kind of delicious character about it that we have always found stood out.
I think also before we started Ministry of Clouds, before we started making our own wines, we actually worked in the region for other people for a very long time, and we found ourselves really attracted to vineyards either planted in sand or rocks, and this particular site specifically is sort of ancient rock, and so lower yielding, a little bit more structure, a little bit more intensity, hence we have come to making wines not from tradition. We don't have family in that own vineyards or in winemaking. When we came to making our own wines, we came from working with lots of imported wines from all around the world. So we worked for them for about 7 or 8 years, and then eventually working for wineries in McLaren Vale, and then eventually making our own wines in our home. But we come with fresh eyes. We're not sort of just because it's what's been grown for many generations. That is not for us necessarily the future. I think we want for what we do to represent where our palates are and what we like drinking. So we've played with varieties that are newer for Australia, but also we're mindful that with global warming and also drought, we're looking at varieties that retain acidity a lot better, like Peakpool and Carignan in our region. The acid is that it just retains acidity, so we don't like to manipulate too much in the vineyard, and if not at all would be perfect. However, that just gives us the chance to work with varieties that we just don't have to manipulate too much.
In some ways, we chose the varieties in this vineyard on the basis of a kind of historical global perspective of the wines that we had the chance to taste, the producers that we had visited in the old world, and there are certain parts of the world that remind us of this place. Mediterranean in climate, warm dry summers, cool wet winters, and ancient geology, and so we considered really the varieties that were planted in similar places in the old world. Peakpool, Cinsault, Carignan, added to the existing and remnant amounts of Shiraz that we had here when we first started. And then increasingly we have worked with and included in the vineyard Grenache, Menthea, and 3 of the new clones of Tempranillo that have come in from Ribera de Duero. And those varieties have been a bit of a game changer for us in many ways. Interest, tannin, appropriateness, they cope well with sunshine, they retain acid, and they have a fantastic tolerance to drought. And they make wines that we can enjoy with food that are mid-weight and spicy and delicious. One of the great things about McLaren Vale is its proximity to the ocean. The moderating effect, of the Gulf of St Vincent means that we have both gully winds in the afternoon and sea breezes in the morning, and it means that McLaren Vale is one of the most easiest places in Australia, not without some risk, but it is one of the easiest places in Australia to grow without systemic chemicals. You have very little disease pressure in this particular region because of that constant aeration of vineyards from from the water. And we also don't have the same extremes of temperature. So we tend to have less frost because of the moderating effect of the water. We also tend to have less of the heat waves at the opposite end for the same reason.
And I also think that when we started making our own wines, we made ourselves a couple of rules, because otherwise we can make anything. And one of them that we were going to make work only with varieties that we've drunk a lot of, because then we know where we're going, or varieties that we're interested in. We think it's a great future for all the changing climate conditions that we're all facing, and so as a result of that, two of the varieties that we drank the most of in our whole life so far is Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. They're two varieties that don't work so well in McLaren Vales. So that was the other thing. We have no interest just to make a wine from a region. We are very lucky to be in Australia because we don't have such strict rules about being in a region and what you can make only. We have freedom a little bit to be able to work a little bit further. And then also Gamay for us in Adelaide Hills. So we make Chardonnay, we make Pinot Noir, we make Gamay. We work with a bit of Shiraz from McLaren Vale as well. We maximise what we can do.
I think we're one of the amazing things about McLaren Vale is that we're blessed by our proximity to places cooler than where we are. And so, from our own home, we can be in vineyards that are 2 to 3 times higher than where we are here and ripen between 4 to 5 weeks later than where we are here. And a genuinely cold, cool climate sites, perfect for Chardonnay, for Pinot Noir, for Gewürz, for Gamay, and that's a kind of it's a real sort of embarrassment of riches to be able to have access to ancient geology in McLaren Vale and also genuinely cool climate in the Adelaide Hills. 10
years from now, I think for us it's just continuing to make better and better and better wines. Like we're finding we're not chasing volumes, we're where we want to be. We just want to work with some great people, some great growers, people that are partners that get what we're about, and for us every vintage is a challenge to make a wine better than the vintage before. That's all that's where we're at, really, isn't it?
It is. I think which it's dawned on us recently that you have a finite number of vintages in front of you, and that you must make every single one of them count. And the build of the new winery will allow us, hopefully, to alleviate any form of logistical pressure. We can pick and ferment, and that particular snapshot can be on skins for as long as it needs to be. It doesn't, there doesn't need to be any form of logistical decision or compromise made, and for us, that's a lovely thing to be able to do. And it's about, we are making no more wine than we currently make in terms of volume. We just want to make better and better wine.
Maybe a couple more new varieties.
It never ends.
Oops.
It never ends.